What if becoming powerful meant losing your humanity? Hello everyone, and welcome to Deku Fiction, the place where My Hero Academia timelines don't just change, they collapse. Today is January 22nd, and we are starting a brand new What If series. In this video, we explore a chilling scenario. What if Izuku Midoriya inherited the Blacklight virus and became something far beyond a hero? This is part one of a dark alternate reality, where strength comes at a terrifying cost, and the symbol of hope may turn into a living weapon. So now let's start this video. Dreams aren't wrong. All Might's frail skeletal form moved toward the door, his footsteps echoing through the room. He stopped just before leaving and glanced back. But dreams must be realistic. The door closed, and with it, something inside Izuku Midoriya shattered. "Forgive me, young Midoriya," All Might thought as he descended the building, never once turning back to face the green-haired boy he had just left behind. On the other side of the door, Izuku stood frozen. His head hung low as silent tears traced their way down his freckled cheeks. No screams, no anger, just quiet pain. Because being a hero wasn't just a wish, it was his only dream. To save people, to protect the weak, to smile even when the world was falling apart.
Just like All Might. Just like the number one hero. Just like the symbol of peace. Just like the person who saved him against the sludge villain. Like the person whose leg he held onto. Just like the person who was injured from his fight 5 years ago. Just like the person who he told his dream and broke his heart. Just like the person who had told him he can never be a hero without a quirk. His eyes widened as he realized, his just like everyone. His just like every single person who doubted and made fun of his dream. His just like every single person who didn't believe that he can be a hero, even without a quirk. His like everyone. His like the doctor, "Sorry kid, but you should probably give it up." His like his mom, "I'm sorry, Izuku, I'm so sorry." His like Kachan, "Take a swan dive off the roof of a building." Kachan's voice lingered on his mind. What kind of friend makes fun of his quirklessness? What kind of friend would beat, burn and hurt him? What kind of friend would tell him to kill himself? What kind of friend would want him to kill himself? Then it hit him. No one. No friend would make fun of his quirklessness in front of other people. No friend would threaten, hurt, and burn him. No friend would use an explosion quirk on his face. No friend would tell him to kill himself. And no friend would want him to kill himself. Kachan, no, Katsuki Bakugo is not his friend. He was never his friend. He will never be a friend to him. To him, he was nothing but a pebble on the street. To him, he was nothing but a crybaby. And to him, he was nothing but a useless, quirkless, Deku. Swan dive off the roof of a building. Huh? He looked around his surroundings and realized he was still on the rooftop of the building. He mindlessly walked near the edge of the building and looked down the streets. He saw cars moving, people in different shapes and sizes walking and talking to each other, and heroes doing patrols and casing villains. Take a swan dive off the roof of a building. He thought of all the humiliation he received just for being quirkless as he took another step closer to the edge of the building. Take a swan dive off the roof of a building. He thought about all the pain and suffering he got in the hands of his friend, as he took was one more step closer to the edge. Take a swan dive off the roof of a building. He took another step and let his body fall and feel the breeze of the wind as the ground looked closer every second. As Izuku fell closer to the ground, the surroundings began to move slower. Like the gods were making sure he see what he had chosen. With the time slowing down, he looked around and saw people began to panic as they saw him falling. Some froze and some ran to find a nearby hero. He smiled sadly. If they only knew that he was quirkless, they would just continue to what they were doing and ignore him like every else in his class does. Hell, his classmates would even be happy when they found out that the quirkless freak jumped off the building. They would celebrate and make it a holiday. Only a couple of feet, till he hits the ground, he closed his eyes, seemingly accepting his fate, and waited to the impact. "Where are you, Izuku?" Inko Midoriya said as he looked at the clock on the wall. Her son should have been home an hour ago and she is getting worried. Izuku is not the type of student that will stay out late or hang out with his friends. Unknowing to her that Izuku had no friends since he was quirkless. Maybe there was a villain attack on his way home? And he watched the hero fight? That thought didn't really help in making her feel relieved that her baby hadn't come home yet. Ever since Izuku was diagnosed as quirkless and saw how her son felt depressed about not having a quirk, she became protective and paranoid about her son's safety and well-being. Though she doesn't admit it, but she knows that Izuku had become distant and she couldn't blame him. Who wouldn't? After she apologized to him when he asked him if he can be a hero like All Might instead of supporting Izuku's dream, she wouldn't be surprised if she found out that his son jumped off a building. And that thought made her even more nervous. What am I thinking? Calm down, Inko. A ring on the telephone jolted her out of her thoughts. She didn't know why, but she felt scared of answering the call. Please be Izuku. Please be Izuku. Inko took a deep breath to calm herself, failing miserably, then shakily picks up the phone and answered the call. Hello. Am I Midoriya residence? Inko Midoriya speaking. Izuku was surprised as he opened his eyes. He was not falling anymore, but he was lying down on the floor. He didn't feel the impact of the fall, which confused him. Is that the feeling of dying? Who would have thought death could be painless? He stood up and took a look around his surroundings. He was standing on a building rooftop with debris and surprisingly blood and guts everywhere that almost made him throw up. Almost. The sky was gray and it was raining, but he wasn't getting wet. Some buildings were burning and some collapsed. The place looked like there was a war that happened, and it looked like no one had survived, or that's what he thought. So we finally meet. The voice made Izuku jump in surprise. He looked at the direction of the voice and saw the owner of the voice. There a man was facing away from Izuku that slowly turned to look at his direction. He was looking at Izuku from up and down with narrowed eyes. Studying Izuku, and it made him take a step back. The man was a tall, pale man with grayish-blue eyes. He was wearing 3 layers of clothes. A button-up white shirt with a protruding collar kept partially buttoned, a plain gray hoodie, and a black leather jacket with a red interior, 2 horizontal white lines on each sleeve, and a red tribal design on the back that Izuku noticed when the man was facing away from him. He also wears plain blue jeans and black shoes. Hello? Izuku said, failing to sound calm. The man didn't respond and just walked close to Izuku and looked directly in his eyes. Izuku tensed as he saw his grayish-blue eyes. It was intimidating yet calming at the same time. It felt familiar but unfamiliar at the same time, and that confusing. Izuku Midoriya. The man said, making Izuku tense even more. He knows my name? Of course, I know your name. Izuku's eyes widened like saucers, but immediately sweat dropped. I said it out loud, didn't I? The man, to his surprise, gave a small smile. I am you after all. Those words confused him. Who wouldn't? A guy who looked nothing like him. He clearly sees that the man looks like an American while Izuku is Japanese. He looked at the man with confusion written all over his face. How can he be this guy? The man saw this and grinned. Well, I'm you and you're ME, but at the same time I'm not you and you're not ME. Those words just confused Izuku even more. Before Izuku could ask what he meant, the man interrupted him. I think what I'm trying to say is I'm you in your past life and you're my reincarnation, he said. Izuku's simply jaw dropped as all felt clear now. That's why he felt a familiar yet unfamiliar feeling toward the person in front of him. He's as the reincarnation of Alex Mercer. Nice to meet you, he said, holding his hand out for a handshake. Likewise. Izuku took Mercer's hands and shook it while keeping eye contact with his past self. He was amazed to see and meet his past self, and it was really cool to see himself in his past life. Both of them felt something on their hands and quickly looked at their hands. They were both surprised to see black tendrils coming out of Mercer's arm and began to slowly crawl up and attach to Izuku's hands. Think about it like how the Venom symbiote moved without a host. It then began to sink into Izuku's arm that made him let go of Mercer's hand and looked at his hand. He then felt something spread within his body. It feels weird in a good way. Wow. That felt weird, Izuku muttered, still looking at his hand. Yeah. That was interesting, the hooded man said. He was still contemplating about the event that just happened. Seems like the virus has merged with your soul. He whispered to himself, not realizing he said it out loud. Izuku, hearing this, looked at him incredulously. WWH, what V-virus? And what do you mean it me merged with my soul? He said, yelled to Mercer, who was still in thought. Oh right. The Blacklight virus. A evolutionary chimeric mutation causing virus that can reproduce only inside the living cells of a biological organisms. It's the virus helped me survive through diseases, physical attacks, and even a nuclear explosion, Mercer said before pausing for a second to see if Izuku was listening. To his amusement was muttering something under his breath which made Mercer sweat dropped. Does this happen often? Mercer coughed lightly, breaking Izuku from his muttering state. Izuku looked at him and scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Sorry about that. Just a bad habit. Yeah. Figured. Nodded Mercer. Though you gotta get that habit out of you if you want to be a hero. Izuku, wide-eyed, looked at Mercer as if he grew a second arm. He frowned and quickly looked away. How can I be a hero when I'm quirkless? Mercer cut him off, which the boy nodded. He grabbed the boy's shoulders to face him straight in the eye. Kid, quirk or no quirk, if you had enough training you can be a hero. But All Might said. He nervously said before he was cut off by Mercer once more. Fuck what All Might said. Why would it matter if he said you can't be a hero? It's not his decision if you want to be a hero, and it fucking isn't that bastard Bakugo's decision either. He paused and took a deep breath. He looked back at Izuku, who had jumped to the volume of his voice as he released his shoulders and composed himself. Sorry, what I'm trying to say is if you want to be a hero, then be the hero you always wanted to be. Train and study hard to rub it to their faces that you can be a hero and to prove them wrong. Alex, Mercer said to him, giving the boy a small smile. But I don't have a quirk. How can I protect people if I can't protect myself? The green-haired boy whispered, looking down, remembering the times Bakugo uses his quirk on him and the sludge villain attack. Izuku was helpless without a quirk. If he can't defend himself, how can he defend others? He heard Alex sigh and he looked up to his past self. As I said earlier, if you train your mind and body you can be a hero to defend yourself and other people. As for being quirkless, Mercer smirked as he crossed his arms. Who said you were quirkless? If I remember correctly, the Blacklight virus had merged with your soul, and if I'm not mistaken it already mutated in your body, turning itself into a quirk thanks to your mom's X chromosomes in your DNA. The virus is infectious and mutated Alex's body mass. I was thinking that since Alex died while still having the virus, I thought that the virus will stay in Alex's soul, which will merge with Izuku's and mutate his DNA. That made Izuku's eyes widen. I have a quirk. I can be a hero. The taller man put his hand on the boy's head, ruffling his curly hair, and smiled. Yes, Izuku Midoriya, you can be a hero. Those words that came out of Mercer's mouth filled Izuku with an overwhelming amount of hope, joy, and also filled the space in his heart with the acknowledgement and support that he needed for the last 10 years of his life. Izuku couldn't help himself and tackled his past self in a hug and cried his heart out. But this time it was not a cry of loneliness, anger, hopelessness, helplessness, but a cry of appreciation, joy, and hope of becoming a hero. Mercer for his part was surprised of the sudden contact but hugged the younger boy. He saw that the boy really needed it, and he knew that the boy will become the greatest hero, that he will surpass his tormentor and that blonde buff asshole. Mercer also knew that Izuku will be the hero he can never be, and by giving by giving the quirk to the boy, he can become the new symbol of hope and redeem him from his past actions that he really regretted in the last second before his death. Oh sorry. Sniff, so sorry about that. I'm just very happy right now, Izuku said, letting go of the hug, drying the tears on his cheeks and eyes. Mercer just smiled and ruffled his hair. Damn, can't believe that this cute thing is me in another life, he mused. He was cut off from his thought as Izuku looked at him once again. Anyway, how do I use the virus or quirk you gave me? The boy asked him as he took out a notebook from out of nowhere. Mercer blinked at the display and gave the boy an amused look. Ha, nerd, yup, he's definitely me. Mercer chuckled. Well, you just need to focus on manipulating the mass and weight of the muscle mass of your body, I think. You know what, don't worry about it, since you will have my memories of using it after our souls fully merged with each other. You won't have a hard time using it, he said, making Izuku confused and surprised. Fully merge? Didn't our souls already merged? Izuku asked the hooded man while scratching his head. No, It was just the soul with the virus that merged to your soul. I know because I can't feel the power inside my veins anymore. He said, looking into his hand and flexing his fingers into a fist. You mean the tingling feeling all over my body the moment the tendrils sank inside my hand? Mercer nodded, confirming his statement. So that's how a quirk feels like. He whispered to himself, making Mercer chuckle. Yes, that's how it feels to have a quirk, or in my case, a virus. But anyway, we need to merge soul for you to get all, and I mean all, my memories. Even the memories of the people I consumed. He then held out his fist, signaling for a fist bump. Izuku looked the hand and looked at Alex. What will happen to you after our soul merged together? He was nervous and Alex can see it. He sighed and looked at his emerald eyes. I'll probably fade. He saw Izuku took a step back. Look kid, if we don't merge souls, you won't be able to control it before the entrance exam, and possibly you won't be able to wake up in time to participate in the exams, since after we merge souls you'll wake up. Time works different here kid. And if I'm not mistaken, it has been a week after you jumped down the rooftop of that building. Izuku's jaw dropped about the revelation. He has been unconscious for a week. It looked like he has just been an hour or two. If he don't wake up now he won't be able to get to the exam. But if he merged souls with, he'll fade. He can't take that. He can't take that the first person who believed in him will be fade away and leave him alone. It hurt him. It hurt him more than how All Might crushed his spirit. Thinking of Alex fading in front of him brought tears in his eyes. Come on Izuku. Alex's calm voice broke him out of his thoughts. Even if I fade, I'll always be with. I'm you and you're me, remember? He said, making every doubt that was in Izuku's mind disappear. Izuku then gave him a teary smile and slowly fist bumped with him. There was a quick spark when their fists made contact, but it didn't hurt them. Izuku can feel the tingling sensation coming from his fist climbing his body, while Alex can feel his body getting sucked and exiting his outstretched fist. They then both saw that Alex's body began to fade from down his feet up to his face as particles began to float his fading form. Before he could fully fade out of existence, Alex gave Izuku one last smile. Promise me that you will become the hero that I can never be. He paused and waited for Izuku to answer, and seeing the boy nod he continued. Well then, goodbye and take care of everyone you love and those who you wish to protect. Be the greatest hero there is and I will always be there for you. As that being said, Alex Mercer has completely faded. Seeing that Alex is no longer with him, looked up in the sky of his mindscape. After 5 seconds, he suddenly clutched his head, using his hands as all the memories came in him. Seriously Alex, not even a waning. When the pain stopped, stood up still clutching his head. And then blinked when he heard a voice enter his ear. Welcome to the top of the food chain. It was Alex. He couldn't help but smile as he saw from the Alex's memories he said that before getting absorbed by a guy named Heller. Looking more into that memory he realized, man, that guy was brutal. Kinda like Bakugo. He chuckled at his new nickname for his former friend. So, how do I go back? Izuku wondered and cursed himself for not asking Alex how to go back in the real world. However, he doesn't need to worry, as he felt a pull in his body and after a second he was falling once more. And he was hearing another voice in his ears. It was soft and sounds familiar. The voice was crying and saying something that he couldn't hear clearly. He closed his eyes, used his quirk to enhance his hearing to listen to the voice. W. K. Page. Zoo. You, what are you saying? Who are you? Whack. Page. Is. Ku. You're clearly not Alex, so. Who are you? Wake up Izuku. Wait. Mom. Wake up Izuku. Wait. Mom. Single quote. Izuku can hear his mom calling him, pleading for him to wake up. Well, he was awake, but for some reason he didn't open his eyes and just listened to his mom's sobs. It made him feel guilty, but he just out of reflex kept his eyes closed. Yes, every time his mom would cry back when he was diagnosed quirkless, Izuku would keep his eyes closed and wait for his mom to leave his room to cry himself to sleep. He can't help it. He can't stand seeing his mom's crying face, especially knowing he was the reason of her cries. I'll be waiting, sweetie. So please, wake up, Izuku. He heard his mom cry to him before he felt her kissed his forehead. After that he heard footsteps walking away from him and a door opening then closing. Then there was only the sound of liquid dropping in a bag and a beeping sound coming from a device close to where he was. There he realized that he was in a hospital. He wanted to open his eyes, but another sudden rush of memories flow into his head and it hurt as hell. He once again inwardly cursed Alex for not warning him about the pain. It feels like he was messing with him. As the pain slowly subsided, he saw Alex's past, how Alex got his powers. From how he woke up from the dead in a morgue up to the moment when Heller slashed him again and again until he was no longer breathing. Damn, his brutal. With the pain gone, he felt tired, like he had been running a marathon and going back to the starting line to restart the race for 10 more tries. He chose that moment of tiredness to fall asleep. He'll just wake up by tomorrow. Next day. It has been a week since Inko received a call from the hospital that Izuku was took in after falling off a building. It broke her to think that her son would try to end his own life. She almost flooded the whole hospital for crying looking at Izuku's bandaged body. But she couldn't blame her son, knowing that he had been in pain after all the pain, mockery and discrimination he received from his peers. If it wasn't for the Mitsuki, Katsuki's mother, she would never stop crying. As to why Mitsuki was also in the hospital is because Katsuki was also admitted in for a completely different reason. The same day Izuku jumped off the building, Katsuki was attacked by a sludge villain that almost killed him if it wasn't for All Might, who was passing by. To be honest, Inko didn't give a shit about Katsuki after she found out that he was the one who tormented her son, and she was glad that he was attacked by the villain. Karma is a bitch, but she never said that out loud since Katsuki's mom is her best friend, also since he's Izuku's childhood friend. Well, at least that's what she thought. She was walking through the hospital's corridor as she remembered the moment where she apologized to Izuku when he asked her if she can be a hero like All Might. She regretted the words that came out of her mouth, and she knew that those same words broke her son's heart, which made their relationship to crumble. And because of those words, Izuku had grew distant towards her. Inko can admit that she was not really supportive on Izuku's dream, and she wished that she had. If she had told Izuku that he can become a hero like All Might, her son wouldn't be as distant and secretive as he is now. She just wants her son to be safe, but she hurt her son's feelings because of that. She wished that she could turn back time so that she could change her answer on her son's question. But there is one thing to that. She can't. She can't change the fact that she didn't believe and supported her son's dream of becoming a hero. She could change the fact that she broke her son's heart and may have caused him to jump off the rooftop. She just hoped that Izuku would be able to forgive him. Izuku. As she enters her son's hospital room, she froze on her tracks on what she saw. Izuku is awake, sitting up looking outside the window, his look like his deep in thought. Izuku. She shakily called out to her son. Izuku looked at her direction, and at that moment she saw her son look the same but look different at the same time. He was giving off a different calm and mysterious aura with the same passion. She teared up when her son just looked at her eyes and smiled brightly. After jumping off a building, her son just smiled like it was nothing. Like it was all a dream. Like it never happened. Hey mom. Good morning, Izuku said, giving her mom a bright smile. How long have? Whoa. He was cut off when his mom tackled him into a bone-crushing hug. Izuku, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I didn't believe in you. I'm sorry you jumped off a building. I'm sorry I can't give you a quirk. Inko sobbed in her son's chest as she hugged him tightly like it was the end of the world. Before she could continue, she felt Izuku's arms wrapped around her, hugging her back, which made her sob more. Izuku didn't said anything and just comforted her mom. When Inko stopped crying, he chose that moment to speak. Honestly, he was still upset of how unsupportive his mom had been. But he knew that he can't stand his mom. Supportive or not, she is still his mom. She will be and will always be the person who loved him even in his quirkless condition. It's okay, mom. I understand. I've forgiven you a long time ago. Izuku pats his mom's back, making her look at him. I understand why you said those words and I can't blame you. I'll admit I was upset of what you said and hoped that you should have at least supported me instead of apologizing for the thing you can't control. He wiped a tear that was falling on her cheek and looked at her directly in the eyes and smiled softly. It's all in the past, all we can do is move forward. Yup, he couldn't stand her. He loved her too much to be upset. Inko hugged her son even closer and cried for a couple of minutes. She calmed herself, and that's the time the doctor came in to check on Izuku. "Oh, looks like you're awake." The doctor looked at Izuku, who bowed slightly and gave him a smile. He then looked at Inko, who broken up from the hug and gave her attention to the doctor. "Good thing you're here, Mrs. Midoriya. I was about to call you about the test's results of young Izuku here," he said as he walked closer to the Midoriyas, stopping a few feet from the pair. "As I said from our conversation last week, it is a miracle that he survived that fall, considering that he fell from a building taller than Mt. Lady in her quirk form. And what surprised us as well as when the medic went to the place where your son landed, they were shocked to see your son in a crater with only having minor injuries and a couple of broken bones," the doctor said, shocking both Izuku and Inko. Izuku, because he was sure he would have more injuries, but maybe it's because of his new quirk. Inko, because she didn't know that her son created a crater upon landing. AC crater. The doctor then opened a folder and looked at its contents before looking back at the Midoriyas. "We have made some tests 2 days ago, and the results are unimaginable. It shows that even after what happened to your son we saw no sign of the injuries, and you said that he's quirkless." Inko nodded while Izuku just stayed quiet. "Well, you see, after some tests and x-rays, we found an extra toe joint on both of your son's feet, but the DNA tests found an anomaly in his body mass." "So you mean," Inko said, and unconsciously held Izuku's hands, which hold hers as well, comforting her. "Does Izu?" Her thought was cut off as the doctor continued, seemingly reading her mind. "Yes, Mrs. Midoriya. After the fall, I believe your son developed a quirk. An interesting one if you ask me," the doctor said, making Inko tear up once more. She looked at Izuku, who was coincidentally looking at her with a look that made her think that he knew he had developed a quirk. He then gave her a smile that she last saw 10 years ago. Before she could ask her son the last words that the doctor registered in her mind. "An interesting one if you ask me." She looked back to the doctor. "What do you mean, an interesting one?" she asked the doctor, who gave her a serious look. "Well, you see, Mrs. Midoriya, your son's quirk is quite similar to a certain person's ability that had happened in the pre-quirk era." The doctor paused and flipped a page in the file and gave it to Inko, who took it and analyzed the page. There she saw old documents that may look like centuries old now. She saw 3 pictures. First is a picture of a man in a hood who was lying in a stretcher with blood all over his leather jacket. The second picture shows the same man flying or gliding in the air, releasing what looks to be red gas or fluid out of his hands and feet. And lastly, a picture of the same man carrying a taxi cab on both his arms with black mass tendrils covering his arms. That man is Alex Mercer, aka the Prototype. He is known for his codename, Zeus, and he is known to be a carrier of the Blacklight virus, the same virus that caused a pandemic in Manhattan in the year 2009. He is known to manipulate his body mass to enhance his physical capabilities and gives him an arsenal of weapons that came in a form of claws, blades, giant fists and a whip-like hand. With these weapons and abilities, he was able to defeat infected abominations and even withstand a nuclear explosion. The last sentence caused the Midoriya's jaws to drop. No one, even All Might, can't walk away from a nuclear explosion. However, after the explosion he had disappeared with no trace. Rumors says that he was defeated by a person named James Heller, another person with the same abilities. But we are not sure if those are true. Before the doctor can continue, Izuku chose the moment to talk. That rumor is actually true. He was defeated by James Heller," he said nervously, getting a look from both the doctor and Inko. He took a deep breath and continued. "Alex Mercer fought and was defeated by James Heller by absorbing him to get his powers and memories. Heller absorbed him to destroy all the infected creatures that were causing destruction all around Manhattan to save humanity. He finished releasing his breath that he never knew he was holding." Izuku waited for the doctor's questions, but it was his mother that talked. "Aizu, how do you know that?" Inko asked her son, still confused about the information. She then saw Izuku looked at her and gave her a soft smile. "It's because I'm the reincarnation of Alex Mercer. I was Alex Mercer in the past," he said, raising his hands, channeling the Blacklight virus through his hands. Both Inko and the doctor looked at his hand and wide-eyed when black thin tendrils began to sprout out of his palms and wrapped around his fingers, hands, and arm. His whole arm then turned gray with a bulky, stone texture. If you're asking how I know, it is because I talked to him, he said while flexing his finger while retracting his hands back to its normal form. He looked back his mom and doctor, who are still looking shocked about this new feat. He shrugged. I'll explain how I talked to him. After Izuku told them the conversation with Alex Mercer while leaving out the reason why he jumped off the building. He might hate All Might by saying he can't be a hero without a quirk, but Izuku was not that vengeful to talk about the hero's actions to make the two adults' thoughts about the hero change. When he finished telling the story to the adults in the room, they were giving him surprised and shocked looks. And he couldn't blame them. He was shocked and surprised himself. Fascinating. This is an extremely rare case of quirk developing through soul merging with your past self. Well, to be honest, your case is the first, the doctor said while jotting down notes on a notepad. With Alex Mercer's soul merging to yours, you get his abilities while eliminating the complications of having the Blacklight virus as it mutates with your DNA, transforming it into a quirk with a less damaging drawback. Speaking of which, what are its drawbacks? The doctor asked Izuku, who started to think. Before he could talk, they all heard a loud growling sound and Izuku began to blush. The doctor gave him a warm chuckle. It looks like it uses the food you eat and your stamina as fuel. Why yeah, I guess I am little hungry and tired right now, Izuku said sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his head. It's true, he is starving and tired. The doctor just chuckled and walked towards the door. I'll call for some protein-based food for you, replenish the hunger and fatigue you're feeling. I will also give your mom a simple recipe for a protein bar for you. He paused as he reached the door and looked back. You have a strong quirk, young Izuku. You are basically immortal with the hyper-regeneration and durability of yours, easily rivaling All Might's quirk, if not stronger. I hope you use it properly and responsibly, because with a quirk like that you can become the greatest hero that you wanted to be, said the doctor as he exited the door. Izuku felt proud as his quirk can rival or even be better than All Might's. He felt overjoyed when the doctor said that he can be a hero. Now that he had a quirk, he can prove himself to those who made fun of him and doubted his dream, especially Katsuki and All Might. He unconsciously clenched his fist at the thought of those two. He would love to see the faces of those two once he used his quirk in front of them. But he can't for some reason. He doesn't want to show them that he had developed a quirk. He doesn't want to end up like Katsuki, arrogant, reckless, crude and has a freaking ego as tall as Mt. Lady. He wanted to be himself. A hero that will be there when you need it and will save you with a smile. He knew he can and will be a hero. He was cut off from his thoughts as his mom held his hand and gave him a teary smile. The doctor was right, Izu, she said as she sniffed. With your quirk you can be the hero you wished to become. Again, I'm sorry for not believing in you. To make up for it, I will support you in my best abilities, she said, hugging Izuku, which returned the hug. She felt happy for her son. She would do her best to be the supportive mother she was once 10 years ago. Thanks, Mom. I will do my best to make you proud. I will become the hero that will help and protect people with a smile, Izuku said. Like what the doctor said, I'm gonna use this quirk properly and responsibly. And to become a hero, I need to enter the entrance exam in UA. His mom nodded at him and placed her hands on his face. Yes, the entrance exam is in 8.5 months. You still have time to train and practice your quirk. By the way, what will you name your quirk? We need to update your quirk registry. Inko asked Izuku, curious on what he would name his quirk. Izuku thought for a second, then smiled and looked at his mom. I'll call it Blacklight. Time skip. Quirk entry. Name: Izuku Midoriya. Birthdate: July 15th. Age: 14 years old. Gender: male. Height: 171 centimeters 5 feet 7 inches. Hair color: green. Eye color: green. Blood type: O. Quirk: Blacklight Transformer Mutation Quirk, formerly Blacklight Virus, allows the user to manipulate and control the density of his body mass. User will have enhanced strength, speed, durability, stamina, regeneration and immunity to all known diseases. Due to user's ability to manipulate his body mass, user can create different weapons for combat purposes. Other abilities: glide. User changes the density of his body that allows user to travel in midair through gliding, used to bridge gaps between buildings or to reach airborne enemies. Sensory powers and thermal vision. User gains the ability to sense the surroundings using his enhanced senses, and thermal vision helps user to locate enemies through their body temperature. Wall crawling, wall running. User channels biomass into his palms and feet, then he crawls, run onto walls. Blade, short range. User summons a long blade on his right hand. Allows user to cut and slice through even the toughest armor quirk vehicles. Claws, short range. Users transforms her hands into deadly, sharp-edged claw. Muscle mass, short range. Transforms both users' arms into gray, stone-textured muscle mass that allows the user increase melee damage twofold and increases the speed of every strike. Theory. With proper training, user will possible upgrade muscle mass into tendrils, James Heller's ability. Hammer fist, short range. User trades speed for power, shifts biomass to user's forearms to allow deadly, heavy area effect attack, crush and shatter armored vehicles. Shield, short range. Allows user to create a shield on his forearm into a durable shield that absorbs damage on impact, preserving user's health completely, until it breaks. Whip fist, mid-long range. User transforms one arm into a thin, flexible, blade-edged arm that can be used to attack at excellent range or whip through entire crowds of villains. Armor, alternative to shield, where user covers his whole body into dense biomass for protection from explosives and gunfire. Consume and disguise. Unlike Alex Mercer's full body consumption, user only need blood to consume, where user will be able to copy the DNA structure of the owner of blood and replicate it to be able to disguise user into the owner of the blood consumed. Theory. User may be able to not only copy the appearance of the person but also the quirk of the user. Devastator. A super attack that causes a massive area damage to their surroundings at the cost of user's stamina and hunger. Different devastators in every weapon used. Advised to self. Do not use move in a narrow space or near civilians. Pack leader, still in work. User uses a third of his stamina to summon large humanoid attack dogs to fight alongside him. Izuku closed his hero journal after writing his own entry. It's been 3 days after his talk with the doctor and his mom. After the talk, Izuku and Inko went to register his quirk, and to say that the doctor who told him he can't be a hero was surprised was an understatement. The doctor bowed to him while repeatedly apologizing for not thinking before talking. Izuku was happy that the doctor apologized and he forgave him and asked a request to not inform the school principal that he had developed a quirk. The doctor was confused at first but did so nonetheless. Then after that, both mom and son went out and celebrate by eating his favorite dish, katsudon. Remembering that last one put a smile on Izuku's face. He felt happy looking at his notebook, but after a minute he opened his notebook and ripped off his quirk entry and put it in a small box for 2 reasons. First, is to prevent it from getting destroyed like his last notebook courtesy of Onkatsuki Bakugo. And the other reason is to prevent Bakugo from taking his notebook and finding out he had a quirk. Him having a quirk will make the Pomeranian explode, figuratively and literally. Not that he's scared of getting hurt for hiding his quirk. It's just that he doesn't owe his former friend an explanation and he doesn't owe him anything. Speaking of Bakugo, he kinda stopped bothering Izuku since the day after the quirk registry. Flashback. That morning he went back to school and was surprised that none of his classmates had made fun of him as he entered that classroom. They just looked at him as he entered and went back to what they were doing. It didn't surprise him because the hospital had informed the school about his accident, but not his quirk. So they probably don't want to cause trouble since he just got out of the hospital and began wary of Izuku since he gained a growth spurt, easily rivaling Bakugo's height. Izuku just shrugged off the attention, or the lack of, to his return and went straight to his seat and started to write the lessons the class had in his absence. It was 15 minutes before the bell when Bakugo and his lackeys entered the classroom. Izuku knew Bakugo entered because for one the whole class began quiet all of a sudden, and two that he can feel the blonde's aura rage directed at him. If he was the same quirkless Izuku that he was weeks ago, he would began shaking and stuttering just feeling the blonde's aura. But after merging with his past self, Alex Mercer, he felt calm, confident and reserved. He felt that not only Mercer's soul had merged but also his personality, though the muttering is still there but he is working on it. So that's why he just ignored the killing intent directed at him and continued writing on his notebook. Bakugo to his part looked pissed off when he saw that Deku didn't even show any reaction to the killing intent that he was giving. And to him it looked like Deku didn't even acknowledge the fact that he was even there. This enraged the blonde and started stumping his way towards the greenette's seat. He stood in front of Deku and was about to blast him using the explosion that started popping on the palm of his hands when the green-haired boy started to talk. "Trying to use your quirk on me again, Bakugo. I wouldn't do that if I were you," Izuku calmly said, still writing on his notebook, making everyone in the class tense with the different tone in his voice. Not to mention the lack of stuttering, shaking and kachan in his words. However, that didn't stop Bakugo from scowling. "What did you say, you quirkless nerd?" Exclamation mark, quote. He screamed, making the whole class minus Izuku flinch of its volume. Not getting a response, he then grabbed Izuku on the collar of his uniform. "Wanna say that to me again, Deku?" he said, yanking the greenette closer to him so that he would be face to face with Deku, just to see the nerd not even reacting to his actions, which pissed him off even more. Before he could attack the greenette, Izuku raised his head calmly and glanced at his palms that was popping with tiny explosions and looked back at Bakugo straight in the eye. The eye contact made the ash-blonde teen's spine shiver and felt uneasy as he looked at Deku's eyes that was missing the fear and nervousness it had the last time they talked. Hence, it had the look of calmness, confidence and indifference. "I said, trying to use your quirk on me again. I wouldn't do that if I were you," calmly said the boy, who was now standing straight, making Bakugo's eyes widen as he realized that Deku was now as tall as him. Izuku then grabbed his hand that was on the collar of his uniform and gripped it, making the blonde wince for the strength the quirkless nerd is putting on his hand. "Since using quirks in public is illegal, I'm sure you are aware of that law, since you're the best student. After all, you wouldn't want UA to find out that you use your quirk in public and let alone hurt and threaten a classmate. I would see your name getting blacklisted from UA, heck maybe in all the hero schools here in Japan. Wouldn't want your clean record get marked, would you, Kachan?" he said, which made the explosive teen pale and loosen his grip on Deku's collar as he let go of Bakugo's hand. Izuku looked around and saw the shocked faces of all of his classmates. Even their homeroom teacher was shocked hearing the once nervous boy's words. That made Izuku smirk inwardly and took a seat and went back to writing as the bell rung, indicating the start of homeroom. Flashback end. After that, it seems that Bakugo had stopped attacking him. But that never stopped the blonde from throwing insults about his quirklessness and how he is still a Deku. He also told him to not apply to UA since he said that no quirkless Deku will become a hero, which of course he ignored, enraging the blonde. Izuku didn't really care what the blonde said, and to be honest he didn't even want to waste time on the blonde since he needs to train his new developed quirk, Blacklight, to get a hang of it once again as he was as Alex Mercer. He was currently laying on his bed staring at his walls that are unsurprisingly lacking too much All Might posters. After he was discharged from the hospital, he removed most of All Might posters and action figures, still feeling bitter about his idol breaking his heart. They're only leaving a single All Might action figure in his Silver Age costume along with couple of action figures of Endeavor, 13, Best Jeanist and Edgeshot. His wall that were once filled with All Might posters now contain rock bands from the pre-quirk era that Alex likes to listen to, like Linkin Park, and paintings that he created when he got home. The All Might themed carpet and curtain are now changed into simple yet nice to look at carpets with a red and gray color scheme. Same goes for his curtains. Looking around, he felt contented by the new look of his room and went back to looking at his phone as he was searching for a place where quirk usage is allowed. He could try at the school gym since quirks are allowed there, however he wasn't planning to show them, especially Bakugo, that he wasn't quirkless anymore. Not until he entered UA for the entrance exam, that is. He can't try in his house since he knew that his quirk is more destructive than those explosions that Bakugo releases. So he had no choice but to find a place to train and practice his quirk so that he would do decently and hopefully cause as little damage as his quirk tend to uncontrollable. Looking at the doorknob that he broke twice, as he swiped up and down for locations that allow quirk usage, he spots a place not far from his house. Dagoba Municipal Beach Park, Dagoba Beach Municipal Park. Saturday 5:45 a.m. Izuku read the sign as he arrived at the location where he would train his quirk and abilities. He began to walk down the staircase of the Dagoba beach and looked around the beach junkyard. It was definitely a junkyard. There was piles of junk that ranged from tin cans to even pickup trucks. Yup, this is a perfect place to train my quirk, he said to himself as he reached the beach. He began to think of the type of training he would do and the abilities he would be practicing to further master them, like how he was back as Alex Mercer. Izuku was cut off from his train of thought when he heard waves crashing to each other and looked up towards the ocean. Wow, I know this place basically became a junkyard, but I could say this place has potential to look beautiful once more, he said, looking at the clear blue ocean with awe. Izuku felt relaxed and saddened to see a beautiful sight covered by piles of rubbish, and no hero even made a move to clean the place. Then again he realized that heroes like MT Lady only want fame and endeavor just focus on capturing villains. All Might could have cleaned the beach, but with his condition Izuku wouldn't be surprised. With that thought he looked at all the piles of junk and back to the ocean. There he made his decision. If no one wants to do it, then I will, he said as he used disguise to change into his plain t-shirt with the word t-shirt and black gym shorts. Izuku practices disguise frequently and found it as a very useful ability to have, and didn't blame Alex for using it in infiltration and hiding against the Gentech operatives. It was very easy to change clothes as long as he wore the clothes for a couple of hours to let the biomass absorb the components' properties of the clothes so that he can replicate the components using his biomass. It confused him how the fabric gets absorbed, but hey, he gets to change faster. Who wouldn't like to change faster, right? At that same time, all the female population in the world sneezes. Izuku began to pick up the smaller junk and garbage like tin cans, soda bottles, ice cream cups, and place them in a plastic bag that he always brought in case he needs to go get groceries. He picked up glass shards from shattered bottles and car windows. He continued picking up the small junk for hours and came back and forth from the beach to the nearest convenience store to buy garbage bags, since the plastic bags were filled up fast and there is a whole beach filled with junk. He placed the garbage bags filled with smaller junk up the staircase of the beach and lined them up for the garbage truck to get them. He wiped his sweat rolling on his chin and looked at the beach. It would take me a month or two just to get the smaller ones out of here, Izuku thought as he picked up another garbage bag full of plastic bottles and soda cans and took it to the staircase. An hour later and he removed the smaller junk from the first pile of 100 piles of junk. He began to smile as he saw that from just a pile of small junk he can say that the beach had changed. Small change, but it's a start. He began to walk home while wiping his sweat using a towel, not seeing a pink-haired girl with green-yellow eyes that looked like crosshairs looking at him first into the pile of junk with interest. Oh, these parts will be good for creating my new babies, the girl thought as he knelt down to grab a part of a broken television, forgetting about the green-haired boy. That night after dinner, Izuku leaned back to his chair as he had just finished writing a new entry about MT Lady. He stretched and placed his hands at the back of his head. He began to think about what he did in the beach. Cleaning the beach was not that bad since he was doing it as an act of heroism and training. The beach needs a makeover to make it look like it wasn't a junkyard and more of a beach. And Izuku was willing to spend a month or two just make it look better than its current state. Because that's what heroes do. However, a thought began to enter in the Greenette's mind. What will he do after he cleaned the beach within 2 months? What will he do for the next 6 months? Then it hit him. He had no plan after cleaning the beach. He pulled his side drawer and took out his quirk entry. He read and analyzed his skills. There he saw offensive, blade, claws, hammer fist, whip fist, muscle mass and devastator, defensive, armor and shield, mobility, glide, wall crawling and wall running and reconnaissance, enhanced senses, thermal vision, consume and disguise, and still needs work, tendrils and pack leader. As he read all of his abilities, in a separate paper he began to write on what to do to master the abilities once more. After 30 minutes of writing the ways to master them, he lay down on his bed mentally exhausted. He found ways to use the skills he already know to use, such as muscle mass and claws, and leave ones he needs to study more, such as consume, tendrils and pack leader, for UA when he gets in. Yes, he's confident that he will be able to get in. Like Bakugo, Izuku also aced the UA mock exams, but Bakugo doesn't need to know that. It would make the blonde teen furious. Not that Izuku cared, but it is such a drag to listen to explodey boys rant about Izuku being a Deku, and he can't be a hero without a quirk blah blah blah. All that shit. As for the fighting style, he saw in Alex's memories that he consumed a street brawler when he first got the virus. That's where he learned how to fight. So, Izuku wouldn't need to go find a dojo to learn how to fight from scratch. Learning a fighting style just from your past self's memory seems to be cheating, but it's okay. He was quirkless for 14 years and suffered so much pain and stress. Izuku won't bother taking a shortcut in mastering his quirk if he wants to catch up with his peers. Just wait till the entrance exams, Bakugo. I'll make you eat your words. Izuku thought before drifting to sleep. He had a long day tomorrow. The next day, Dagoba Beach Municipal Park, Sunday 5:30 a.m. Izuku woke up and took a quick shower before going to the dining room. He ate breakfast that was already served since his mom had an early shift from her part-time job. After eating, he washed the dishes before going outside for a jog to the beach to continue his cleaning and training. It took him 20 minutes to get to the beach. When he arrived, he began removing the junk while channeling and adjusting the density of his biomass on his legs as he sped towards the piles of junk to start his training. It was one of the tricks he thought to make himself faster and to help his kicks become stronger. His theory was proven true when he crashed face first into the pile, making a loud sound that made the nearby birds flew. He quickly stood up to check if he got injured and was right when he saw his right arm had blood on it but no wound to be found. Looks like my regeneration really is enhanced, Izuku thought as the blood on his hand began to seep into his skin, giving him a tingly feeling. After making sure he had no other injury, Izuku began to look around and saw a large freezer without one doors a couple meters away from him. He would use that as a training dummy to check how strong he can punch with his new quirk. Muscle mass, Izuku thought, and started channeling Blacklight on his arms, and black tendrils began to burst out his pores and covered the entirety of his arms, making him flinch slightly because of the sudden tingling feeling in his body. As the black tendrils fully covered his arm, it began to bulk up and turn into a gray, stone texture. His hands felt harder and heavier, but as strong and heavy as the hammer fist. He began to walk, then sprint towards the freezer. He cocked his right arm to give the object a punch. When his punch landed, the freezer was crushed like a soda can that got hit by a stone and flew a couple of meters near the ocean. Izuku's jaw dropped with the force of his punch. He looked at his arm, then to the freezer and back to his arm. A smile began to creep into his face as he looked around at the piles of junk. This is going to be fun, he said in his mind as his hand changed into claws. And that is all for today. Class dismiss. Izuku's science teacher said as he collected his things and left the class. The students began to stand up and gather their belongings as they made their way home. Our green-haired protagonist stood up and began to put away his belongings into his bag. It has been 2 weeks in his cleaning session in the beach junkyard, and Izuku can proudly say that he had cleaned a fourth of the junk and destroyed most of the broken appliances there using his offensive abilities. He found a way to lower the power of his punches and kicks by channeling small amounts of biomass on his arms. Kinda like OFA, but cooler LMAO. With lower biomass on his arms as he transformed them into the offensive, his transformed arms would look thinner but still having the known features. For example, his claws would look shorter and his hammer fist and muscle mass would look smaller and smoother. As he slung his bag on his back and began to walk towards the exit off the classroom, his path was blocked by the one Katsuki Bakugo and his 2 lackeys. He looked at the blonde who looked pissed for some reason. "Can I help you, Bakugo?" Izuku asked the blonde with raised eyebrows. He was not in a hurry, but he had a lot more important things to do than be in front of Bakugo. "You still trying to go to Ua, Deku?" Bakugo asked in a growl while glaring daggers at Izuku, who didn't respond. "I would advise that you don't waste your time trying to go to Ua, because no, quirkless Deku, like you is getting accepted to UA." He continued as he turned around, walking away from Izuku with his lackeys following him while snickering. "So what if I'm quirkless?" Izuku said in a bored tone, making the blonde teen stop in his tracks and turned at him with narrowed eyes. When Bakugo saw his blank expression, the blonde scowled and yelled. "What did you say, you quirkless piece of shit?" He began stomping his way towards Izuku, who didn't even flinch as sparks of nitroglycerin began erupting on Bakugo's palms. "I think I didn't hear you clearly. Mind saying that to me again?" Izuku sighed and looked straight at the blonde's eyes. "I said, so what if I'm quirkless?" "That's my problem, not yours," he said, still looking at the other teen's eyes, who still wore a scowling face. "And so what if I'm applying for UA? It's my choice, not yours. And if you're worried how I'm gonna pass the practical test, well," he said as he walked past them and stopped without looking back at the trio. "That's for me to know and for you to fuck off," he said with a smirk and walked off, leaving Bakugo and his lackeys with angry and shocked expressions. Somewhere near Mustafu, Yusei is a second-year student turning third year in 8 months in UA. Toshinori Yagi, All Might, in his skeletal form, asked someone on the other side of the line. He just got out of the grocery store when his phone rang. Looking at the caller ID, he saw his old sidekick calling him. "Yes, All Might. His name is Mirio Tagata. Hero name. Lemillion, and his quirk is called Permeation, which grants him the ability to phase through physical matter. A strong quirk, and if he gains one for all, he would surpass me and possibly you as well. Mirai Sasaki, also known as Sir Night-Eye. Quirk. Foresight. I think he is a good candidate to be your successor since he is an optimistic kid and makes the people around him feel safe. And with his body being already having muscles, he would very much fit being the next symbol of peace," he said in a confident tone, making him sound like he was right and was never wrong. The boy they were talking about is Mirio Tagata, a second-year high school student who is studying in UA in the hero course. They are talking about All Might pass his quirk, One for All, a stockpiling quirk that becomes stronger as it is passed from one generation to another, to the said boy. All Might was skeptical about passing down OFA to Mirio, but Sir Night-Eye was persistent in choosing Mirio to inherit his quirk and let All Might retire as a teacher in UA's hero course. At first, All Might would usually reject this straight on. But seeing that there was no other candidate to inherit OFA, he would consider passing the quirk to this Mirio kid. That kid sounds promising, All Might said thoughtfully. "Okay, I'll see for myself if he is worthy of inheriting my quirk. I promise to you, Toshinori, he is more than worthy. I am confident that he is," Sir Night-Eye said sternly, but All Might can hear that the man was smiling through the phone. Before All Might could respond, a loud bang was heard from a distance. All the people around was panicking and running away from the source of the explosion. "A villain attack. I'll call you back, Mirai," he quickly said and hung up, not waiting for Mirai to respond. He ran towards an empty alley and transforms into his muscle form and began to run towards the crime scene. Within 3 meters he jumped. "Don't fear." "Why?" "Because," he landed in front of the villain, the same villain that MT Lady fought, who apparently escaped, who visually flinched. "I am here. That's for me to know and for you to fuck off." PFF'd. Izuku snickered as he remembered the look on Bakugo and his lackeys' faces. They look ridiculous and he wished that he had a camera. He was walking home from the bookstore to buy a book about a certain topic in algebra. He was studying not only for the entrance exams but also for his algebra class. Izuku may be confident in his skills when it comes to book smarts, but algebra is a different subject. It's way too hard to be called a subject in school. "Detroit Smash," a loud voice said, which made him stop walking when he heard the voice, knowing who it belonged to. He looked at the direction of the voice and saw a group of people surrounding what looks like a villain attack, and there stands out a tall, muscular man with blonde hair and blue eyes, All Might. Izuku saw the number 1 hero holding the same villain he saw MT Lady and Kamui Woods capture on the day where he was attacked by the sludge villain, where All Might had told him he should give up on his dream of becoming a hero. It's not bad to dream, but you need to be realistic. He clenched his fist with the memory flashing in his mind. He may still adore the man for his heroic actions, but he can't look at him at the same admiration as he used to do. Well, who wouldn't? If your idol, hero and source of happiness was the one who would shatter his already broken heart. Even the fanboy, hero otaku, Izuku did change his view of his so-called idol. He was cut off his musings when he saw All Might look in his direction with wide eyes and a guilty look in his eyes. Young Izuku, the hero thought, looking at the green-haired kid. It had been a long time since he last saw the boy, and he was surprised to see that the boy was no longer the same scrawny kid he left in the rooftop of the building. The kid was now taller, between 5 feet 6 inches or 5 feet 7 inches, and he can see from his uniform that he had developed muscles. He was about to approach the boy when he suddenly saw his eyes. His eyes that once had a look of admiration and curiosity, were now replaced with calmness, indifference and little hate, making him flinch a little. The boy noticed this and inwardly snorted and patted himself on the shoulder for intimidating the number 1 hero. After 10 seconds of staring at each other, Izuku looked away and started walking home, not looking back at the blonde hero. He was planning on making a sketch for his hero costume just in case he got accepted, which he will when he got home. He thought about the same as Alex Mercer's attire when they met. Same leather jacket and pants, but changing the color of the hoodie with a forest green color and changing the shoes to his usual red shoes but with straps. It may not be practical for a hero to use leather jackets, but it was stylish and he was sure someone will also use leather jacket in their hero costume. Somewhere in Japan, a guy with blonde hair with black lightning and a purple-haired girl with an asymmetrical fringe sneezed wildly. He was stopped in his musings when he felt someone bump into him. He heard an annoyed but a soft, "Sorry," as the person who bumped him walked away. He also heard the person saying something like, "Damn you, Shinji. It was supposed to be my day off." When he looked at the place where the person had bumped him, he saw a wallet and picked it up. He knew it belonged to the person who bumped him. He looked inside, read the name in the ID and quickly ran toward the person to give the wallet back. "Hey miss, I think you dropped your wallet," he shouted as he was running towards the person who was a girl, female. The woman turned to stop and looked at Izuku's direction with an annoyed expression, but instantly softened when she saw him. The woman had round face, purple eyes with white pupils, and has elegantly long eyelashes. Her hair was voluminous, creamy blonde hair, and had them curled and flowing down her face. She was wearing a fitted purple t-shirt under a brown winter jacket with fur on the hood, fit denim pants folded up and heeled, tan sandals. Beautiful, is all he can say to describe the lady in front of her. He noticed a blush on the woman's face and mentally smacked himself, knowing he said that out loud again. I think this is yours," Izuku said as he handed the wallet to the lady, who took it and smiled at him. It mesmerized him and he felt his face heat up. "Thank you," she said as she bowed slightly and turned away, not waiting for his response. "You're welcome," he said as the lady walks away, and he too turned to go home. While walking, he thought of the lady and smiled. She was beautiful, but she seems familiar. He just couldn't say where she saw her. All he can remember is her name. Yu Takayama, he said as he took a turn. In the shore of the Dagoba Beach Municipal Park, you are able to see a green-haired teen, Izuku Midoriya, sitting on the white sand, admiring the view of the sea as the sound of waves crashing into each other and distant birds can be heard in the background. It took him 3 months to gain bigger muscles and abs. Izuku post 9 months training in canon, though he hides it under his baggy clothes. He wouldn't want to be noticed for 2 reasons. 1. He doesn't want Bakugo screaming at him for training his body and will tell him it was useless because he's nothing but a quirkless Deku, which is annoying. And 2. He doesn't want the attention. He may be more confident than he was back, but people giving him too much attention is uncomfortable in his point of view. It had been 5 months of his training cleaning in the beach, and he had mastered all most of his offensive abilities with the exceptions of the Devastators, Tendrils and Pack Leader in different reasons. The Devastators causes too much damage in his surroundings and it is risky to use it in a public place. Even if the beach allows quirk usage, he would risk destroying a quarter of the beach just to try out the move. The Tendrils and Pack Leader causes too much stamina, and the last time he attempted to use these moves he fell into unconsciousness. He had to ask for his mom to make more of those protein bars the doctor made and request to add more protein for his quirk, to avoid exhaustion and getting unconscious. Within the 5 months, Izuku had also mastered his armor, shield and disguise consume with the help of Mei Hatsume, a UA support course aspirant who he met 4 months ago, and she helped him in his defensive training, also promising him to make him a voice-canceling face mask to help with his muttering. He gave a soft chuckle remembering the first time they met. Flashback. Blade. Izuku thought as he morphed his right hand into a large curved dagger the size of his whole body minus his head. It was black in color of the whole blade and red vein-like lines on the dull end of the blade where it is connected to his arm. He looked at it first and noticed it looked different and was heavier than the last time he used it. Looks like it upgraded, he thought, and just shrugged as he turned to the direction of the unlucky object that was about to get destroyed, a grandfather clock. He began charging to the object with his blade hanging back as he ran. As he gets close, he jumped and began rotating his body mid-air to perform a spinning slash to the clock. As he seemingly passed through the object, he landed on one knee with his blade still behind him, outstretched. Izuku then looked slowly at the grandfather clock, which upper part began sliding down, slowly separating to its lower half. He was smiling in the result of his attack but made a mental note to lessen the biomass in the dull edge of the blade. He almost lost balance mid-air and he would have landed face first on the sand. As he was admiring his work, he did notice a pink-haired girl standing behind him looking at his bladed arm and the grandfather clock. "So you're the one who's been cleaning this place and destroying my supplies," the girl suddenly said, making Izuku jump a bit, almost hitting the girl with his blade, if he didn't retract his quirk back. The girl looked at him with a grin. Now that they had distance between them, Izuku saw what she really looked like. The girl was short, probably between 5 feet 2 inches or 5 feet 4 inches, but has quite a mature build. She has shoulder length, salmon pink hair in thick dreadlocks. She is wearing a plain black tank top that helped emphasize her breasts, which made his face redden, with workshop coveralls tied to her waist, fingerless gloves, and has a steampunk goggles resting on her head. But what caught Izuku's attention was her eyes. They were wide and sloped upwards with some notably long upper eyelashes, their irises green-yellow with a cross in the center, making them look somewhat like scope lenses. Her eyes must be connected to her quirk, he mused. "That was an amazing move you did there," the girl said, walking straight to the damaged grandfather clock and took out a plastic bag out of nowhere and took some gears and parts of the clock. Izuku blushingly diverted his eyes when he saw her bend down and her breast bounced. "Why yeah, thanks. What are you doing here anyway?" Izuku asked as the girl looked at him. "Oh, me, I was here to get some parts for the baby I am making," she said as she went to a pile of junk and pulled out a broken microwave and a hair dryer. Baby," Izuku sputtered out, confused and shocked at the girl's statement. "Yup, I've been working on making a rocket boots and halfway finishing it, but I need to find some useful parts in creating a heat regulator and where to find parts but here," she said as she placed the microwave and hair dryer on a pickup truck at the top of the staircase. Oh, she means inventions. But for some reasons, many of the parts one need were shattered, crushed, folded and made into a disc, and you seem to be the one responsible, she said, looking back at him still smiling. Oh, sorry about that. I was just training and practicing my quirk. You see, I just got my quirk 1 month ago and I saw this place as a perfect place to practice my quirk for the UA entrance exams, and I kinda want to clean this place to make it beautiful once more, he said, bowing his head. Nah, it's okay. I already got that part there in the truck, she said, pointing at the direction of the truck as faced him. I'm Mei Hatsume, by the way. Future CEO of Hatsume Enterprises. Mei said, grinning widely. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you, the green-haired boy said, smiling at the girl. So you're an inventor, Hatsume? He asked as Hatsume began walking to the pile of junk and tried to pull out a broken Bluetooth speaker. Yup, I'm an inventor all right. I'm going to apply for UA to enter the support course so that my babies can get recognized and all the famous hero support companies will buy my babies so that heroes would use my babies and I will become the best inventor in the world, she said, while taking out all the components from the speaker and placing them in a box that he took out from who knows where. Izuku observed her and gave her a look of admiration. She's so straightforward and she knows what she wants to do in the near future. Wait, did she said she was also applying for UA? Wait. You're going for UA too? He asked her loudly, making her flinch slightly. He noticed her reaction and blushed slightly. So sorry, I just got excited. So you're going to UA too, huh? I'm also going for UA, in the hero course that is, he said sheepishly. When she heard that he was also going for UA, Hatsume turned her head towards Izuku so fast that Izuku would have swore he heard a bone crack. Hero course, you say? That's perfect. You, she said, pointing at him, whatever your name is, will be my key into being the best inventor in the world. You will be the first person to use my babies and show the world how great of an inventor I am, she said and cackled loudly, making Izuku sweat drop when she forgot his name, but before she could talk again the boy cut he off. Sorry Hatsume, but I think I can't use your babies, he said as he scratches his head. She looked at him and narrowed her eyes, making the brunette flinch. What do you mean you don't want use my babies? Do you know how great they are? Do you know how? Before she could continue, Izuku cut her off again. No, I mean, I didn't say I don't want to use you babies, it's just that I can't use them without breaking them unintentionally. He paused to let her calm down. When she did, he talked once more. You see, my quirk is called Blacklight. It lets me control the density of my body mass. It also allows me to transform my forearms into weapons like the blade that I used earlier. The biomass in my body also absorbs the atoms in my clothes, making it easy for me to change using my quirk. If I, for example, were to wear a bodysuit that you created, I would unintentionally damage or destroy it with my quirk, making it hard for me to use support items, he explained and panted. He got tired of just explaining his quirk. Izuku then looked at Hatsume and saw that she was downcasted, which made him guilty. But if you really want my help, I could give you a hand in creating new babies. You know, I'm something of a scientist myself, he said, still looking at her, and sighed in relief when he saw her smile wide. Well, he wasn't really lying on being a scientist. Alex was a scientist on his time and he was Alex's reincarnation, so technically he was also a scientist. Well, I look forward working with you, she said, holding out her hand while trying to remember his name. He sweat dropped once again but took her gloved hand and gave her a smile. Izuku Midoriya, and I look forward working with you as well, he said as he shook her hand. Flashback end. After that, he and Hatsume worked together in creating her babies, and Izuku testing the durability of the babies they make. Even though Izuku wasn't really sure of being a scientist, he was surprised when he caught up in the inventing with Hatsume and found it easy. Probably Alex kicking in again. Looking back at the time he spent with Hatsume, he found inventing with the pink-haired girl fun and entertaining sometimes, especially when a baby blew up in front of her, covering her face with ash. Sure, she may be eccentric and doesn't think of what she say to others. But most of that was basically her having no friends to talk about her babies, and being isolated for her extreme like of inventing. Just like him, but in his case, him being quirkless, his like of being a hero and his notebook full of hero stuff. However, that is slowly changing since he had a quirk. Only time can tell. He is now currently walking the streets thinking about the training he did for the past months. Meeting Hatsume was a blessing in disguise. Because of her frequently going to the beach, he began training his defensive abilities, and if it wasn't because of the explosions her malfunctioning, his shield and armor would have been hard to master since he had no way of testing its durability, and he would never ask help from Bakugo since he didn't want to reveal his quirk yet until he got in UA. And even if he revealed his quirk to the blonde, there is chance in hell that the Pomeranian would help him train for UA. There is only 3 months left before the entrance exam, but he doesn't want to waste time. Looking back at his moveset, he still have to train his wall running, wall crawling. His glide was not as hard since he kind of used it too often to either jump towards the target or land safely after an explosion courtesy of Hatsume's babies. It was actually fun to use, but he kind of freaked out when he saw a red liquid coming out of his hands and legs as he glide. He examined it and he found out those were pressurized blood that lets him propel from through the air and disappears in thin air after being released from his body. His consumed disguise, Devastators, Tendrils and Pack Leader is still non-existent since he reserved those moves for UA. He was not going to use those more complex and destructive moves without supervision of a pro hero. As he walked towards home, he noticed an old building which looks like an old warehouse. Izuku also noticed that the doors of the entrance is broken. He took a step closer to the entrance and peeked inside. What he saw made him widen his eyes. There he saw was really an abandoned warehouse where there was a lot of crates, old forklifts and dust all around the place. Looking around he saw that the walls of the warehouse were covered with cobwebs and has pipes sticking out of the ceiling. This place looks like I can train my wall crawling and wall running here. Seemed that this place allows quirk usage. He walked towards the wall and started to summon his quirk on his palm, making it look like a weaker version of the hammer fist, and placed it on the wall's surface, making it crack but not destroy it completely. He grinned and nodded. It's settled then. I'm gonna train my wall crawling and wall running here, he thought as he removes his hand off the wall and exits the building, not noticing a black-clad figure with a scarf that looks like loose bandages sleeping on top of a crate. As Izuku exits the building, he went straight home as it was already late noon and he still needs to study for an exam they will be having tomorrow. The next day, with Bakugo. Fuck, that test was fucking hard. Who the hell needs algebra in destroying villains anyway? Thought a mentally exhausted Katsuki Bakugo as he walks in the mall toward the arcade. He just got out of school after a monthly exam that his teachers do in order for them to hone their brains as a preparation for those who would want to go to UA. Which are him and Deku. Deku. He gritted his teeth as he remembered how calm the bastard had been after his return from an accident. It pissed him off how calm and confident the nerd was during the test, and noticed how Deku was the first one to finish his test before him. Katsuki will admit that when it comes to academics he and Deku were on the same level. There were even times where they were tied in the top spot in the school ranking. But that never bothered him, since most of the times he has better grades than the quirkless loser. But that doesn't change the fact that Deku, the quirkless loser, the person who trembles on the sight of Katsuki and can't talk back to him, the pebble on his road, was starting to become a boulder in Katsuki's way that seems to block him in his way on becoming the only student of Aldera Middle School to enter UA. Sure, the entrance exams will be hard won for a quirkless loser, since there was a portion where they need to use their quirk, but looking at how confident Deku was in applying for UA makes Katsuki wonder if he had a way to pass the tests. How will he even pass the entrance exam if he doesn't have a quirk? He's just wasting his time in trying to be like me. He'll never be past the exam. But Katsuki clenched his fist as he thought. He was sure that Deku won't be able to pass the test without a quirk, but something tells him that the loser has a way. And knowing how smart the bastard is pissed him off even more. He was cut off of his stupor when he arrived the arcade. He tried to calm himself, tried to enjoy the day. He'll deal with Deku next time. Next time for sure, with Izuku. Okay, ow. Maybe I should hold onto the wall whenever I want to stop running. Ow, damn, that freaking hurts, Izuku said, rubbing his back that was aching after falling off the 25 feet wall he was climbing. After the test that Izuku thought was really easy, he quickly went back to the abandoned warehouse and used disguise to change into his gym clothes to practice wall crawling and wall running. He immediately tried wall crawling when he reached the wall and found out that he was able to move in a slow pace as he climbed the wall. But he didn't mind it. Izuku already know that it was slow to use wall crawling, using the memories from Alex's past of course, since it requires a lot of biomass and stamina to stick to walls without falling. It may not be his favorite move to use, but it was good for infiltration missions for the future, so it's still useful. Wall running on the other hand, however, was tricky. It was hard for him to master it because the move requires the user to use the same trick he used for glide, where he released pressurized blood on his legs and feet to allow him to move up fast and balanced as if he was running horizontally. The problem was he always forget to use his hands to hold onto the wall whenever he tries to stop to look at his distance from the ground. He fell down 7 times now, and that slightly pissed him off. Izuku sighed, putting his frustrations on the back of his head, and calms himself. After calming himself, he looked up the wall. Okay, Izuku, one more time, he said to himself, and ran up the wall once more, in his mind remembering to use his hands if he stopped. Near the warehouse, a black-clad man wearing yellow goggles with a long scarf that looked like bandages with tired-looking expression was sprinting on the rooftops. He was currently chasing a thug that attempted to rob a convenience store as he was passing by. Said man is Shota Aizawa, aka as the Erasure Hero, Eraser Head. Underground pro hero and a teacher in UA. Well, he was before he expelled his whole class for some reasons, and he will become a teacher again after the entrance exams. That is if he don't expel his soon-to-be class. Back to him chasing the thug. He is getting close to the thug and readied his scarf and quirk when the thug made a right turn and ran inside the abandoned warehouse where Aizawa was sleeping yesterday. To why he was sleeping there, he had a long patrol on the night and ended up sleeping there from 4 a.m. to 7 p.m. Ridiculously long, but it was a nice sleep. Away from noises which is caused by a certain loud blonde he knew very well and wish he didn't. As he entered the warehouse, he saw the thug unconscious on the ground, but what surprised him was the fact that there was a boy, not older than 16, sitting on top the thug while rubbing his head in pain. "Man, I can't believe I forgot to hold on to the wall again," the green-haired boy said, not noticing the unconscious man under him. The boy then looked at him and widened his eyes. Oh, hello sir. What can I do for you?" the boy politely asked, trying not to freak out to see another hero up close. "You can get off the thug that you sitting on right now so I can take him to the police officers," he said in a tired voice. The kid looked at him with a confused expression and looked down. When he saw the unconscious thug, he jumped and leapt away from the thug while sputtering words so fast, making a rapper run for him money. Aizawa on his part hid a smirk under his scarf and looked at the boy with amusement. Before he could talk, he noticed at his peripheral vision the condition of the walls and saw that there were cobweb-like dents and craters on the floor. From what he saw, the kid had been practicing his quirk. "So, you've been training your quirk, huh, kid?" the older man asked, still looking at the dents on the wall. "You know it's illegal to use your quirk in public, right?" He noticed the boy tense and looked down on his feet. "Why, yes sir," the boy answered, but before Aizawa could say anything the boy continued. "But I need to train and master using my quirk before the UA entrance exam." Aizawa pointed out the emphasis on the need, and it made his eyebrows raise. He didn't say anything, making it a way to say, "Go on," for the boy to continue. The boy took a deep breath and looked at the man. "You see sir, I just got my quirk a couple of months ago through soul merging." As the boy explained his story, Aizawa felt mixed emotions. Impressed because of the boy's determination in becoming a hero and for the fact that he was the reincarnation of the Alex Mercer. Saddened because of the boy's pain and how he was treated when he was quirkless, and furious not at the boy but to the kid named Katsuki Bakugo in All Might. He would took note to personally deal with the Bakugo kid when he got accepted into UA. He would make sure to put the kid to his place and give him a reality check. All Might, he never really liked the guy. Yes, he may be a great hero, but the fact that he brush off and crush a kid dream, not knowing if the kid was suicidal, was a red flag. And he know that the man was going to be a UA teacher, and Aizawa was not happy about that. All Might didn't qualify as a teacher, and making him the teacher of future heroes can spell disaster. Aizawa was cut off from his stupor when he heard the thug groan and quickly used his scarf to apprehend the thug before he escaped. He then looked at the boy, who has been quiet for some time now. He then walked towards the boy and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I'll be going, kid. Good luck on the entrance exams," he said, and turned around to leave. But before he could exit the building, Aizawa looked back at the boy who was watching him leave. "By the way, what's your name, kid?" he asked with a bored expression. "Izuku, sir. Izuku Midoriya," he said as he straightened up. Aizawa gave him a small smile. "I'll be waiting for you in the hero course, Midoriya," he said, and quickly leaving the building. Izuku to his part was shocked. Who knew he was talking to a UA teacher, and one from the hero course? He had told the man his story and he felt like a weight was taken away from his shoulders. He began to walk to the direction where he placed his bag as he remembered the man's last words. "I'll be waiting for you in the hero course, Midoriya." Those words made a smile creep onto his face. The man who he forgot to ask the name, possible a UA teacher, had told him that he will wait for Izuku to get into UA, to be specific, in the hero course. He felt his heart swell and he smiled wider because he had another reason to pass the entrance exam. To become part of the hero course, to meet the man who somehow believed that he can pass the exam. And he will. Izuku began to walk to the exit, but before he could completely exit the building he looked back at his work, dents and crater, and nodded. In a couple of months, would be taking the entrance exams. And at that time, he will no longer be a quirkless loser, and he will make sure he passes the exam and get into UA. "I will pass the entrance exams and I'll become the hero I always want to be. A hero that saves and protects people with a smile," he announced to no one in particular and left the area. He was walking quietly towards home, not noticing Aizawa on the rooftop of a building. "I'm sure you will, Midoriya. I'm sure you will," he said as he walked off. "Would you calm down, Izuku? You're going to do fine in the entrance exams tomorrow. Mei says to a nervous Izuku as she screwed back together the parts of the new baby that just exploded. Can you hand me the pliers, please? She pointed to a table near Izuku. They are currently in Mei's room workshop. She asked Izuku to come over to help her test the new baby she had created. It was supposed to be a gauntlets that allow the user to use laser beams to shoot at enemies and thrusters that let the wearer fly. An idea of Izuku inspired from a comic named The Invincible Iron Man, he read a while ago. Mei was skeptical at first, but when she found out that the main character was an inventor, she snatched all the copies from Izuku's room and made a plan to recreate the armor on the hands, which were to her part was the easiest part to recreate. Easy for you to say, Ms. I already took my entrance exam a week ago. Izuku deadpanned as he grabbed the pliers and gave it to her. It had been months and now, only a day before the UA entrance exams. Izuku had been both excited and nervous. If you rate it in percentage it'd be 10% excited and 90% nervous. Nah, screw that, he was 100% nervous. He may have been more confident and grew stronger, but deep inside he is still a 15-year-old kid about to take an exam for high school. He couldn't help but worry. What if I screw up and could do good? What if the entrance exam was a lot harder than what the rumors say? What if... He was cut off his mutterings when a book hit him at the face, comically making him fall down. Would you shut up? Mei uncharacteristically snapped at Izuku. She was mostly eccentric and boisterous. She rarely gets irritated, and this was the third time she snapped at Izuku. First was when Izuku forgot to bring the part she needed for a base she was working on 4 months ago. Second was when Izuku accidentally destroyed her goggles. Just thinking about the latter and what she did to him makes him shiver in fear. Okay, I deserved that, Izuku groaned out and stood up while removing the book on his face. He rubbed his aching face with his right hand. Sorry about that, he said, still wincing as he massaged his aching nose. Ow, looks like my nose is broken. Again, he began using his quirk to heal his nose. Izuku saw her, took a deep breath and pinched the bridge of her nose. You really need to calm down, Izuku. You'll do fine tomorrow, and knowing you, I'll bet you will finish the written portion of the test under 10 minutes, she said, giving him a small smile as she looked back at her baby and began rearranging the wires. And you really need to stop with the muttering. It will annoy those around you, and in the future it'll give away your location, she said. Yeah, sorry, force of habit, he said sheepishly while making sure his nose wasn't broken anymore, and sighed in relief when he felt it was no longer broken. Sorry, I just feel nervous. No, scratch that. I'm anxious. But thanks for believing in me, he said and smiled widely. Yeah, you're welcome. Now scram. It's almost 6 and Auntie Inko will be furious when you don't go home now, she said, standing up and opening her door. The greenette just chuckled and walked towards the door. Okay, thanks for having me anyway. See you later. Mei, he said as he exited the door and looked back at her. Wish me luck for tomorrow. You won't be needing luck, Mr. Mercer, she said, and Izuku groaned, but they both laughed. It had been an inside joke between them that Izuku was basically a 29-year-old in a 15-year-old kid's body. And Izuku having all his memories in Alex's life had always been a teasing tool for Mei, especially when she found out that one of the memories was an intimate moment between Alex and a chick named Karen Parker. By the way, you owe me a box of chocolates bars, she said nonchalantly, making Izuku's eyes widen as plates. What do you mean I owe you a box of choco? You know what, never mind. You'll have it next week, he said, still frowning, which made Mei giggle. She knew her best friend was the best. Thanks, Izu, she said sweetly and hugged him. If Izuku was still the same person from the time they first met, he would bet he would have fainted there. But now, it didn't bother him anymore, though he still blushed with the contact. Yeah, whatever. See ya, he said as she let him go and started running home. He heard her yelled, "Goodbye," and he smiled. It was almost 6 and he still needs to prepare his stuff for the entrance exams tomorrow. The first step on becoming a hero. Tomorrow's going to be a blast, he thought as he remembered what Mei said. He smiled softly and ran home. I'll do my best. Time to prepare for the exam of his life. The next day, Izuku woke up that day and began to do his morning routine. He began by going to the bathroom and brushed his teeth, washed his face and went to the dining area to get breakfast. As expected, he saw the table was full. There he saw was pancakes, bacon, eggs and orange juice. He also noticed a note on the top of the pitcher. Izuku, I'm sorry I can send you off to UA and personally wish you luck. I had an early shift today in work. But always remember that whatever happens I will always be here supporting you. Good luck on the entrance exam and make me proud. I love you my little hero. Mom less than 3. P.S. I'm pretty sure your dad will be so proud of you, wherever he is now. Izuku smiled and felt sad about reading about his dad. Though he never met him since his dad died before he was born after a villain attacked his workplace. Yes. I made it that Izuku's biological father is dead. I really don't like the theories that All for One was Izuku's dad. But I do have a plan for AFO in the future. Because of that, Inko had been working jobs after jobs to support Izuku and raise him well. He may not met his dad, but with all the stories of him loving his mom, makes Izuku think that he would be proud of him developing a quirk and training for UA. Putting the note down, he started to dig in and thought about the exams. He wouldn't lie to say that he wasn't feeling nervous, but he can also say that he's excited and ecstatic to the thought to be able to use his quirk. Izuku had worked hard to master his quirk in just months to be able to keep up with his peers such as Bakugo who had their quirks for a long time, unlike him who just developed a quirk 8 months before the entrance exam. Now that the time for the entrance exams had come, he would do his best to pass it. It was not only for him but also for his mom, for his dad and most importantly, for Alex. He was the first person to believe in the Greenette's dream of becoming a hero. Izuku would use his quirk to fulfill his goal and make them proud. Also, he would want to see the hero that he encountered in the abandoned warehouse in UA. After that encounter, he looked up for heroes that match the description: black costume, yellow goggles and scarf, which had resulted to be Shota Aizawa aka the Erasure Hero, Eraser Head. He was a teacher in UA and he was known to expel students who he sees no potential, and his recent expulsion was a whole class. It made Izuku even more nervous and excited. Nervous because who wouldn't? Excited because the hero met him firsthand and told Izuku that the hero would wait for him in UA. Meaning Eraser Head saw potential in him and it made him happy. After eating breakfast and quickly washing the dishes, Izuku took a shower and changed into his middle school uniform. He made sure he got everything he needed including his UA admission form, pencils, paper etc. He placed his backpack and went his way to the station. As Izuku arrived to his destination, he couldn't help but feel awe by the size of UA. It was double, no triple the size of Aldera Middle School. He saw May students from various schools going inside differing in shapes and sizes. Mutation quirks he thought as he saw a tall guy with 6 arms attached in a web-like skin making it look like a frog's feet walk by. Some are chatting as he saw a boy with spiky red hair and a pink-skinned and haired girl talking to each other. Some are calm and thinking to themselves seeing a raven-headed boy walk inside, and some are nervous noting a brown-haired girl looking nervous seeing her slightly shaking and worried expression. Seeing a nervous person made his heroic instincts kick in and decided to approach her to help her calm down. But as he was about to walk towards her, he was stopped when he heard the voice of the last person he wants to see today. "Fuck off, Deku," a loud voice from behind him yelled, making him groan and roll his eyes. He boringly looked behind him and saw Katsuki Bakugo with his usual scowling face. "Great, just the guy the first want to see," Izuku thought sarcastically, hating the fact that the blonde saw him. "Don't stand in my way, or do you wanna die?" The blonde said, walking past him and bumping his shoulder to Izuku's, which didn't even budge. "Nice to see you too, Bakugo," Izuku said sarcastically while shaking his head. "He never changes," he whispered and inwardly sighed. As he was about to step forward to enter, he noticed a slightly uneven walkway. He stepped to the side to avoid getting tripped. That would be embarrassing and it would be ridiculous. I mean, who the hell would trip on a crowded area? In the multiverse, all Izukus from different universes simultaneously sneezed violently before tripping. Here goes nothing. He enters UA and went to the room where they give the written exam as held, not noticing a pair of blue eyes watching him enter with a solemn look. "Young Midoriya, All Might in his skeletal form whispered as he saw the familiar green mop of hair of one Izuku Midoriya enter the room where the written portion of the exam is being held. He remember once again how he rejected the boy's dream, and he'll admit he was happy that the boy didn't listen to him and pursue his dream of becoming a hero. But he couldn't help but be worried about the quirkless boy. Toshinori know what the practical exam is about, and seeing how hard it was to pass that portion without a quirk. He sighed and began to walk towards the teacher's lounge to wait for the practical exams, slowly forming into his muscle form as he got out of the examinee's line of sight. Though I doubt you would pass the practical exam without a quirk, I wish you good luck, young Midoriya. An hour later. Wow, who would have thought that the written portion was that easy? Izuku thought as he head towards the waiting room where all examinees will be instructed about the practical test. Well, Izuku wasn't lying about how easy the test is for him. He basically knew most of the answers since he have memories of Alex coincidentally taking an exam with the same questions in his college entrance exam back in his time. Though the same can be said to most of the examinees in his room were sweating bullets as they answer their papers. When he reached his seat number, he groaned when he saw who his seatmate was. Wanna guess? Yup, Katsuki, freakin' Bakugo. Though it was kinda understandable looking around the examinees were seated with their schoolmates. I guess the seats placed schoolmates with next to each other to prevent awkwardness. Sighing, Izuku just sat next to Bakugo, who growled, "Deku," seeing him, but he just ignored it and began reading the handout given to them. After 20 minutes and the seats are filled, Hizashi Yamada aka Present Mike walked to the podium. "Welcome one and all to my live show. Everybody say HEYYYYYYYYYYYYYYY. He said, yelled to the examinees and placed his hand to his ear expecting someone to greet back. The examinees just stayed quiet while some just rubbed their ears. Izuku would have responded, but he was too busy of making sure his eardrum don't drop to the ground because of the loud noise. "Now that's ear splitting, no pun intended," Izuku said while rubbing his finger in his right ear trying to stop the ringing, making some of the examinees snicker. Not getting the reaction he wanted, Present Mike continued. "Tough crowd. Now pay attention, listeners. We'll be testing your mettle by running a 10-minute practice run at our replica city district." As he said this, the screen behind him showed letters AG. "You will be separated in groups and everyone will gather at the designated area after the presentation." That's where Bakugo said a word. So, they don't intend on letting friends or classmates cooperate with each other, huh? Izuku looked at the blonde's direction and saw that his handout say Section B. TCH. Probably a setup so I don't get to crush you. He growled and Izuku just snorted. "Crush me. Don't make me laugh." Izuku then looked at his handout and saw that he was assigned in Section D. He kept his eyes on his handout as Present Mike continued. "We'll be placing a large number of villains over the battlefield. And they'll appear in 3 different varieties, with point values scaled according to difficulty. Using each of your individual quirks, dispatch as many villains as you can. Your goal, listeners, is to rack up a high score." Izuku heard Bakugo chuckle evilly, and knowing said blonde it's probably just him liking the idea of blowing up things. "And don't think of attacking any other competitors or any of that anti-hero stuff, that's against the rules, capiche?" Izuku was expecting the pro-hero explain the next part when he was interrupted by a loud, stiff voice. "Excuse me, may I ask a question?" Izuku saw the guy, who was tall, had short dark blue hair, flattened neatly down and parted on the right side of his head, a small patch completely shaved near the base of his head, and rather square eyes which matched the notably pointed shape of his jaw. He was kinda stiff, which Izuku just shrugged off and went back and read the handout, but still listening. On the handout, there are clearly 4 types of villains listed. Such an error would be the height of embarrassment for a top-tier National Academy of UA's caliber. The reason we are seated here today is because we seek guidance on the oath to becoming model heroes. The stiff guy said, making Izuku mentally roll his eyes. "Elites." He sighed and heard Bakugo grunt in agreement. "Moreover, what's with you? Yeah, you, curly-haired kid," he said, pointing to Izuku, who still haven't raised his head. "Are you even paying attention? If you can't take this serious L," he was cut off when Izuku raised his head and looked at him boredly. "Sorry, Did you say something? Izuku said in a bored tone, making the tall guy face fall comically. The green-haired boy's reaction made most of the examinees snicker, most notably the red-haired guy, the pink-skinned girl, the bob-haired girl, a guy with purple balls as hairs, and surprisingly Bakugo, who was laughing loudly. Deku or not, that was funny. What? Weren't you listening? The tall boy said, blushing in embarrassment. I was. But then you started interrupting Present Mike, who was clearly going to the next type of villain when you interrupted him. Izuku looked at Present Mike, who nodded and continued. Sit down and keep quiet, you're distracting everyone. He finished and placed his right elbow on the desk and placed his cheek on his palm. The tall boy was about to retort when Present Mike stepped in. Okay, settle down. Thanks for the question. Examinee 7111 and examinee 1802 was right. The fourth type of villain you'll encounter is worth 0 points. Let's call them arena traps. Have you played Super Mario Bros. Before? He said, showing an image large robot monster on the screen. You remember those things that'd go thwomp on you? There's a thing like that in every arena. Their gimmick is that they rampage when crowded. Present Mike finished and the tall boy began bowing stiffly to the amusement of the other examinees. I see. Sounds like one of those stage hazards you have to slip through and avoid. This really starting to resemble a video game, he said in between bows. Thank you very much. I apologize for being rude, he said as he sat down to the relief of the examinees. Well, that's enough from me. I'll leave you all with a presentation on the school's precepts of this academy of mine. As a certain hero by the name of Napoleon Bonaparte once said, a true hero never stops overcoming the misfortunes in life. Present Mike said and smiled. Now let's move to the main event. Plus Ulta. And may all you suffer the trials to come, he said, making the examinees both excited and terrified. This place is massive, Izuku said to no one in particular as he saw how large the replica city district really is. That's ooh for you, make an entire city district for the entrance exams. He whispered to himself as he began to do some simple stretching to relax his muscles. He was wearing a black unzipped hoodie, a plain white t-shirt, black gym shorts and white shoes in the same design as his red ones. What? Izuku can have different colored shoes, right? As he was doing this, he began to analyze the other examinees. He noticed the guy with 6 arms there flapping his arms, relaxing it, a guy with twinkling eyes calmly standing there, shining, the tall guy who was stretching in a stiff fashion making Izuku snicker a bit, and lastly he saw the bob-haired girl pressing his fingers together with the exception of her pinky finger, which Izuku raised an eyebrow a bit as he saw odd circles on her fingers. Probably a touch-based quirk. She looks nervous, maybe I can help her calm down, he thought and walked towards the girl. The tall guy saw this and was about to confront him when Izuku tapped the girl's shoulder, making the girl eep in surprise, making the girl jump a bit and looked at him blushing. Oh, sorry for startling you, I just thought you need someone to talk to calm yourself down. I'm Izuku Midoriya, by the way. Izuku offered his hand for a handshake. Oh yeah, I'm so nervous, she said sheepishly, still blushing. I'm Ochako Uraraka, nice to meet you. And she took his hand, shaking it. Izuku released his hand, but before he could say a word, he heard a loud horn and a go from Present Mike, automatically began channeling Blacklight on his legs and booked it. Izuku already passed the gate and was met by a one-pointer which saw him. Target lock on. Annihilate. The robot began charging at him. He just looked at it and waited for it to come near him. When it was about 10 meters, he began to channel Blacklight on his arms, not much to form a weapon but enough to make his attack damage destroy a metal object. He cocked his fist and slammed his fist on the robot's head, breaking its head as it collapsed. Izuku saw the result of his attack and looked at his fist with a smirk. He looked up and saw more robot, varying in points. He shot off to the location while saying, muscle mass, and his hands become enlarged with gray stone texture. 1 down, more to go, as he charged at the robots. What speed! Thought of every person in the area. Tenya Iida, the tall guy, and Uraraka were flabbergasted like the others in the area by the speed of Izuku. Even with his quirk engine, he couldn't move that fast. They were cut off from their musings when Present Mike shouted, "What's the matter? There's no such thing as a countdown in a real battle. Run, Rune." With that, the remaining bunch began frantically running towards the gate to get some points. As the gates opened, Bakugo used his quirk, Explosion, to propel himself to the battlefield, leaving dust and debris everywhere and making the other examinees flinching by the sudden impact. "Target lock, destroy," said a charging two-pointer, making Bakugo grin maniacally. Getting closer, he pushed his arms forward and began producing nitroglycerin on his palms. "Die," he screamed as his sweat explodes, destroying the two-pointer on contact. Seeing his masterpiece, Bakugo smirked, liking the feeling of destroying robots. He had waited so long for this, and now that he is here, no one can stop him. "Not so tough, you overgrown toaster." He laughed as he kicked a limb of the destroyed two-pointer and began propelling himself to a nearby building to search for more villains to destroy. "I'm going to be the greatest hero, greater than All Might. And I will destroy every villain that come in my way," he said as he blasted through the window and destroying two one-pointers in the process. "And that's 65. That's probably enough to the practical test, right?" Izuku said to no one in particular as he wiped a bead of sweat of his forehead. It had been 7 minutes since the start of the practical exams, and so far, everything has been interesting. Flashback. 4 minutes ago, at 25 points, Izuku was running the alleyways trying to move from one spot to another since his previous location had been filled by examinees. And as the examinees filled the place, he noticed that the three-pointers were nowhere to be seen. Probably since there are so many people there. Gotta find more robots too. He was cut off from his line of thought when a one-pointer had burst out a building in front of Izuku as he exits the alleyway. "Target lock, murder," the robot said and placed a crane-like claw near its head and shot towards him. Izuku was readying his quirk to summon his claws, when he heard a voice coming from behind. "Art of seduction," said a person from behind him as he shot a laser beam from his belt and hit the robot straight in the face. "God damn. Merci. Nice team play there," said the boy with the strange belt. He has a slim figure, his face appears rather feminine, and he has long, flattened yet spiky blonde hair. The guy looked at him and winked at Izuku, which creeped him out a little. "Nevertheless, it seems we shall not cross paths again. Adieu," the guy said and booked it, leaving Izuku with a sweat drop. "Now that is one weird guy. Is he even French?" Izuku thought and began wall running to gain high ground and spot the next wave robots coming. As he began jumping from one building to another, he heard a feminine voice screaming. Though it was faint, he still can hear it. He looked down the building but see no one. As Izuku shrugged it off and turned to leave, he heard it again and searched for the direction of the voice. When he arrived to the location, he was shocked to find a collapsed building. Izuku called out and heard a faint response on the other side. He began to channel Blacklight to his eyes to use thermal vision, and saw that there was someone stuck under the wrecked building. Not hesitating a bit, Izuku began channeling his quirk and summoned his muscle mass. He told the person under the wrecked building to move away, and when she moved away, Izuku punched the wall of the building strong enough to destroy that portion but weak enough to not let the whole building go crashing down them. When Izuku entered the building, he was greeted by a blur of clothes, tackling him to the ground. Thank you for coming. I was so scared," the person repeatedly said to Izuku while hugging him. Basing on the voice, he quickly knew that the person on top of him was a girl. Bonus was the fact that he could feel her breast squishing on his torso. That thought made Izuku blush. When Izuku looked at the person on top of him, he noticed that the person was invisible. Invisibility quirk. Those are rare, right? He was snapped out of his reverie when he felt his shirt become wet. He quickly assumed that the girl was crying. Izuku began panicking since he didn't really know what to do when there was someone crying in front of him, and began thinking of a way to calm her down. But all he could think of was what his mom would do when he was crying. He hesitated at first, but he saw that the girl was really scared. Risking it all, still using thermal vision, he began to pat her head. "Shish, it's okay. You're safe now," he said while slowly rubbing his hands on the girl's hair in a comforting way. Seeing the girl calm down a bit made him smile. They stayed like that in couple of seconds. Izuku stopped his hands when he felt the girl got off him. Deactivating thermal vision, he then sat up and looked at the girl, well, her clothes. "What's your name?" he asked her with a calm voice, not wanting to scare her more than she was now. She fidgeted a bit and faced him. I'm Toru Hagakure." Still scared, she said quietly, almost silently, but because of Izuku's enhanced hearing he could hear her clearly. "Toru Hagakure," Izuku repeated in his mind. What a beautiful name. He thought to himself, but when he saw her flinch a bit he knew that he said that out loud. Putting that aside, he smiled. "I'm Izuku Midoriya," he said as he stood up. "It's nice to meet you, but we still have an exam to pass." "How many points do you have?" he asked her as he looked down at her and offered a hand to her, to help her up. She took the hand and stood up. "I think I have 5 points. I don't think I can pass the test," she said sadly. Izuku looked at her. Before he could ask her why, she spoke up. "As you can see, my quirk is invisibility. I can't fight robots. I just got lucky with the 5 points because I snuck up on 5 one-pointers and turned them off." Izuku, shocked when he heard her said that, and cut her off. Wait, you say you turned them off? They have a switch?" he asked her, still in shook. Oh yeah, they have on their backs." "Why?" she asked him. Izuku began to smirk, creeping her a bit. "I have plan." They began to walk outside to prevent the risk of getting crushed by the wrecked building. Later. "Okay, that's 40 points. Great work, Hagakure," Izuku said as the 3-pointer collapsed in front of him. He had thought of a way to help Hagakure gain points. He thought that if he distract the robots while she sneaks up on them and turn them off from behind. She was a bit hesitant at first, but when the plan succeeded at the first try she was convinced. Hagakure was so happy that Izuku was willing to help her even in an exam which would be every man for himself. He didn't hesitate in helping her. She then observed him up close and thanked God for being invisible, helping her to hide the blush she was having as she stared at his face. She had to stop herself from squealing. "Kawaii," when Izuku smiled, and it began to emphasize the shapes of his freckles, making him look adorable. She was cut off from her stupor when Izuku looked at her direction. "So, what are you waiting for? Let's go get more points for you." He nodded to the direction and started to turn away when a hand grabbed his arm. Izuku looked at her in confusion. I think that's enough for me. You can go back to getting you points," she said to him, looking at his eyes, admiring the emerald orbs, unnoticed by the greenette. "Are you sure, Hagakure? We can still get more if you want," he asked, genuinely confused why she wants to stop. "Believe me, I want to get more points." She paused to take a deep breath. "But I also want you to get points for yourself. I think 40 points is enough to get in UA. Thank you for assisting me and thank you for saving me." She came close to Izuku and he felt something touch his cheek. A kiss. A kiss from a girl. A kiss from a girl he just met in the exams and help in getting points. A kiss of sign of respect and gratitude. A kiss of admiration and adoration. But he didn't need to know the last one. He blushed and touched his cheek using his hand. Not really knowing what to do, Izuku just smiled at the invisible girl. "I'll see you in UA." The girl turned around and began walking away. "Oh, and by the way," she paused to look back. "Call me Toru, okay Izuku," she finished and began walking in a brisk pace. Leaving a grinning Izuku. "I'll see you in UA, Toru." And Izuku channeled Blacklight on his legs and began to sprint in the opposite direction while cheering to himself that he made another friend. End of flashback. After he and Toru part ways, Izuku encountered a horde of robots varying from 1 to 3 points. He then used his muscle mass to charge into the pile of robots while tearing and destroying the robots that he ran through in the process. He got 32 points in that pile, but he didn't stop there. He went to search for more. Izuku used his wall running and ran on the buildings, wall in search for more robots to wreck. On his way to the center of the city district, he saw the weird guy that shoots lasers on his stomach having performance issues or a stomach ache as he was holding his stomach with a look of pain. When Izuku saw that the guy was about to get pummeled by a large 2-pointer, Izuku swooped in by using glide and landing a hammer fist-coated punch to the aggressive bot to save the poor weird guy. After saying, "Now, we're even," Izuku left quickly as he sprint away just like how the weird guy did to him earlier. He then began to punch and kick robots and even throw the remains of a destroyed robot to an arriving robot. While he was throwing the remains, he made sure to hit the robots and not the buildings to prevent someone from getting trapped in them like Toru was before Izuku saved her. He was currently leaning on a railing of a rooftop, scanning the ground full of examinees and robots, intact or destroyed, when he heard a loud horn and was startled by a strong force comparable to magnitude 3 earthquake. When he looked down, he saw the examinees running away from the direction of his spot. Curious about what was causing them to panic, he turned to look and was wide-eyed to see a zero-pointer toppling 2 buildings with ease. Earlier, somewhere in Ua, in a dim-lit room, there gathered figures of all shapes and sizes. The figures are quietly sitting staring at a large screen where all of the examinees are being showed in every screen. They were all looking at the screen with look of awe, judgment, excitement and lust. The silence were shattered by a tiny yet intelligent voice. A strict time limit and a vast battleground. Nothing quite like it to bring everyone's ardor into the open and uncover their skills. He paused and looked at the screen. The ability to grasp the situation quickly and accurately, he said as the screen shows the examinee with 6 arms in a web-like pattern using his quirk in gathering information. The ability to dick a dynamic entry without ever being late to the party, showing Tenya Iida that is shown to have engines on the back of his legs as he speed in the bunch of robots. The ability to face any obstacle with coolness and composure, looking at the weird guy as he shoots a laser to a robot while winking at the camera. How can he even see the camera? Thought of most of the people in the room. And of course sheer fighting prowess, looking at Bakugo as his blows up a 3-pointer with ease. We can gauge their respective levels of those foundational skills by the way of the points system, he finished as he looked at every examinee doing their best attacking and defending against robots. You're right, and by the looks of it, a tired, bored voice from Eraserhead called out. This kid has all of those skills. He finished pointing toward a green-haired kid on a rooftop and scanning the surroundings. The others agreed to what the black-clad hero said, earning a smirk under his mask. Too bad All Might was not able to see what Midori. He was quickly cut off by the person who had just entered the door. Sorry, I got lost in the way back, said All Might in his skeletal form as he sheepishly enters the room and made his way to the front next to Nezu, the bear-dog-mouse principal, earning a glare from Aizawa. Before Aizawa could confront the number 1 hero for being late, the sultry voice of the R-rated hero, Midnight, spoke up. Oh my, we've raked in a bumper crop this year. We can be sure of that yet, All Might said as he lifted the cover of a red button. The thing to test their mettle is this. As he pushed the red button and a loud horn was heard in the battlefield. Back with Izuku. Holy shit, a 0-pointer. RUUUUNNNN. Izuku heard from an evacuating examinee as he landed on the ground. The examinees were panicking and began running away from the 0-pointer, forgetting about the points. Izuku stood there analyzing the 0-pointer, not seeing Iida looking at him, confused why the greenette wasn't running as he sped off the location to safety. Man, that's massive. It's too risky. Even with my hammer fist I can't destroy that. I need to get out off here before, he thought as he slowly turns away when he heard it. Ah, oh. The voice Izuku remembered in the start of the practical exam made him stop on his tracks. He slowly looked back and was horrified to see Uraraka stuck under rubble, looking hurt. Oh no, she's gonna get crushed. I need to do. Wait. Why am I running? He thought as he kept running towards the 0-pointer with blacklight-infused legs. My body is moving on its own. As he passes a scared Uraraka and avoids a large metal fist by jumping up until he was over a couple of feet from the robot's head, then lets himself fall as he channeled as much biomass on his right arm as he transformed it into a spiky hammer fist. Ha! With a yell, he pulled his arm to his back and punched the 0-pointer as hard as possible, resulting in getting destroyed as a massive explosion that was heard from every section of the Mach City district. The explosion was so loud, the examinees didn't hear Present Mike say, 2 minutes left. Izuku to his part was falling and he couldn't do anything to stop himself or brace for impact since he couldn't move his arms and legs. He sprained his body due to quirk overuse, but was confused why he doesn't feel tired like how it should have been since his quirk uses his stamina to convert the protein in his body to produce the biomass he needs to create weapons and use his quirk. As Izuku was bracing for the impact of the fall, He was startled when he felt a hand hit him in the face and he felt weightless and started floating. He then saw Uraraka put her hands together and with a yell of release, Izuku fell to the ground hard but not as hard as he was expecting during the fall. He was about to thank Uraraka when he saw he on top of a robot vomiting rainbows. Izuku was unsure if the fall had damaged his brain or if he was really seeing rainbows come out of the bob-hair girl's mouth. The green-haired boy was stopped from his train of thought when a loud voice of present mic was heard around the whole city district. Time's up. Back with the UA teachers. All Might stood up from his feet when Izuku destroys the zero-pointer with one punch. He has a quirk. Did he lied to me? Did he always had a quirk? He was cut off from his trance when Aizawa's voice echoed in the silent room. The most important qualification of a hero. The spirit of self-sacrifice. He said, walking to cabinet and began searching the cabinet. Aizawa then took a folder and made sure it was what he was searching for. Aizawa then read its contents. Izuku Midoriya, 15 years old, quirk, Blacklight, allows the user to manipulate the biomass in his body to be able to create weapons and have enhanced strength, speed and regeneration. He paused and handed Nezu the folder, who read the file and passed it to All Might and turned to the door. With a powerful quirk and the mastery he had using it, who would have thought that he only developed it 9 months ago? He said, hiding a smirk when he noticed all the people in the room were shocked with the exception of Nezu, who began cackling like a madman. Oh, and Nezu, I want him in my class, he said as he left the room, thinking that he would now have one student safe from expulsion. Izuku Midoriya, I look forward teaching you, he said as present Mike's voice echoes in the whole UA. With Izuku, ow, damn it, note to self, don't use too much biomass for one attack, he said to himself as he tried to stand up. Keyword. Tried, as he keeps falling to his knees. He still couldn't feel his legs due to it numbing because of quirk overuse. Thinking back to what he did, he was confused when he realized that the hammer fist he summoned was similar to Heller's version of the hammer fist, which is bulkier and has spikes coming out on the hands to cause more damage to its target. He was caught of when he began falling down again when an arm grabbed his jacket from behind to keep him from falling face first. He looked back and saw Uraraka now putting Izuku's arm over her shoulder to support him. The close contact between the two teens made them both blush, but in Uraraka's case his existing blush brightened. Thanks for the save, Uraraka. That would have been a sick landing, Izuku said, shattering the silence. Said girl just shook her head and smiled at him. No, I should be thanking you. If it wasn't for you I would have been crushed by the zero-pointer, she said as she looked back at the now obliterated zero-pointer. That's an awesome quirk you have there, Midoriya. You punched that thing like it was just a tin can, she continued as he looked at Izuku, who was flattered by the compliment. It was nothing, your quirk is the one that's awesome. You made me weightless, as if I'm in outer space or something, he said, making Uraraka blush even more, making her face resemble a tomato. As the two were conversing and the other examinees were looking at the damage that Izuku dealt to the zero-pointer, Iida was deep in thought. That kid, he leapt into action to save that girl. You had no time left. And you yourself out of harm's way. The chances of passing was the main priority of everyone here, and yet despite of that, he jumped in without hesitation. He clenched his fist. If it hadn't been in the middle of the big exam, I, of course, would have done the same. That was when a thought entered his mind. Wait, maybe that was part of the test. Iida was still in thought when a voice called out to them. Go home lads, I'll take it from here. It was a short, elderly woman with gray hair styled into a netted bun, a large syringe poking diagonally out of it to the left. She has a notably small nose and eyes which are usually drawn as two little dashes, and a long mouth with defined nasolabial folds. She wears a doctor's lab coat and a dress with yellow buttons, and a belt with a pink, R-shaped buckle. She wears pink boots and has a helmet around the sides of her head, a purple-tinted visor joining it over her eyes. In addition, she walks with a cane designed like a syringe that she can also use for healing the injured. Leave it to me, boys. Oh, and here, enjoy some gummies, it'll give you your energy back, she said as she passed out some gummy bears to the examinees while walking to Izuku and Uraraka. Excuse moi, mademoiselle, the weird guy said while winking. She's a mainstay here at UA, always supporting the academy, the youthful heroine, Recovery Girl. Recovery Girl ignored the guy and just walked closer to the two teens. What seems to be the problem here, dear? She said, looking at Izuku, who stopped himself from muttering about being able to see Recovery Girl up close. I just sprained my right arm and my legs are numb due to the quirk overuse. Other than that I'm fine, he said as Recovery Girl kissed him on the cheek and he felt his arm and legs gain feeling but at the same time feeling tired. That should do it, and how about you, dear? She asked Uraraka, who was amazed on how Izuku can stand now unlike before the elder heroine showed up. I think I sprained my foot. She pointed her right foot that was swelling a little bit. Recovery Girl kissed it and Uraraka